Hi everyone, welcome back. You catch me mid-repair on something else, but never mind that failure over there. I'm gonna keep failing at whatever this is. If you're new to the channel or a returning viewer or subscriber, thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'm still awaiting the results of the racechoice.com sponsor contest that I was involved in, and I just want to say thanks to everybody, and I really hope that it benefit you guys in some way because, hey, at least you got 5% off on your stuff if you needed it, so I hope that worked out. We'll see in a couple days if I actually got it. I might even post it on this video. Apologies for the hat head. I had a hat on, but it is now 72 degrees outside up here in New England, and I'm not ready for that, so I'm sweating profusely as if that's warm out. So anyway, truck's in the yard. That's the plow truck, if anybody remembers it. I've got rear brake issues. I was looking at it, and I need to order parts for it, so it's just kind of in my way. So I said, you know what? I got a few hours before the kid gets off the bus. I might as well go and tackle the issues on the front end of this car, which you saw in the last video. So if you remember, I forgot to mention in the video or put something up about how the lower control arm was moving as well as the steering. The reason for that is because I didn't see that until I edited the video. My bad. So I'm going to dive into that, and I don't know. It looks like there's a loose bolt, which is weird because all the rest of the bolts are tight. And I usually tighten the lowers on this car down real tight, like until the sleeves bottom out in the bushings, because usually I can get the lower tight enough that I can move the thing freely while it's still tight. I mean, you do that to the rear with that suspension, it's not going to move, but up front they move just fine. I don't know what the deal is, but either way, it's usually tight. And it also looks like a factory bolt. And these are aftermarket bushings, which could possibly take up to a 1/2-inch bolt. And obviously factory bolts are a little smaller, and if one's loose, it could be slopping around all over the place. I'm wondering if the steering is really any bad, or if it's this one A-frame up here that's just flopping around. So I got spare A-frames. I don't think I've touched them since I put my Chrysler ball joints in because, well, personally, I'm very hard on equipment, as you're all probably aware. And I like strong things. And ball joints are important, so I put really strong ball joints in the car because I can. Either way, I also have the inner seal on the hub, or outer seal, whatever it is. The only seal that's on the hub. I think it's the inner one. But that's popped off, like it didn't fit properly, and it's just sitting on the spindle, and the hub is just rotating around it. And it's like, that ain't good. So I got to pull the hub off. I got to fix the seal. I got to take the lower off, and I got to inspect all this stuff. And this time I'll actually remember to put you guys on time lapse so you can see me work for once. So isn't that the whole point, I guess? So either way, let's get to doing something. So I pulled this bolt out, and I don't even know where it came from or what it is. In all honesty, it doesn't look like the correct bolt. It almost looks like a damn cylinder head bolt, for God's sakes, like a factory one. I don't know, but look at the threads on it. She's gacked. Like, she's real beat up because that thing's been sliding around in there a lot. And I mean, this is the one it was in. Look at that. That should fit really well, and then it should tighten down, and it's just not the right bolt. I mean, I got a factory bolt just to show you the difference. This is a factory front suspension bolt. It's got a little wiggle because it's obviously an aftermarket bushing, so I'm probably going to go through and see if these will accept 1/2-inch bolts, and if they accept 1/2-inch bolts, well, I'm going to have to swap them over so that there's no slop, and that it'll actually, if it actually loosens up, it won't do that again. That was just horrific. I don't think they're bent. I mean, I can throw a quick measurement on this thing, but just normal maintenance, and I'm just really not very good at it. I'm very behind, and I'm gonna have to go check the other side, make sure that's either tight or has the correct bolts on it, but we'll see what happens. We'll get some bolts put in here if they fit. We'll put the best size that we can find, and we'll crank her down, and then we'll check and put everything back together again to see how bad the steering actually is, if it is a steering issue. Well, this turned into a much bigger project than I had anticipated, because you can't really get a drill in here to drill these pockets out very well. And so I had to drop the whole center link out of the car. And that's a good thing, because I kind of checked the idler arm, and she's got a little tiny wiggle to her, so I figured it'd be about time to replace that. And I think that's good for now. We'll pull the left side off and do exactly the same to the right side, and we'll just go on from there. That way, at least we have bigger bolts. Bigger bolts are safer, and they won't slop around if something should come loose. So that's kind of my main concern that we're tackling here. So I moved over to the left side here, and it feels tight, but then I can go, if I had two hands, I can actually move, and this one again is a little bit wiggly. This is why I'm gonna take the stock hardware out with these aftermarket bushings. I never noticed this stuff before. Probably because it was such a small amount by hand that I could never really tell the difference. But then when everything is on the car and you move the wheel, it's a ton, and I never really noticed that. So I'm gonna take this side off since the steering's already taken off of it. We're going to re-drill this side, drill out the sleeve and the bushing, and fix this side too. Why not? I mean, then I'm going to find all my spares, which I think are behind me somewhere. And we're going to do those too. Okay. We've changed all the bolts in the lower control arms. We tightened up all the steering as best we could. You're going to find out at the same time as me whether or not this worked. Oh man, I hope I don't have to spend hundreds on that stupid steering box. Hey, look at that. I could tighten this plate down a little better. I think I could put more nuts on that, but dude, it don't move at all now. All right. Crisis averted, I think, for now. But it's actually a pretty good way to figure out if the steering box is bad, because if everything's tight and you look down, you can see the end of the pitman arm shaft on the steering box moving around. This is an easy way to do it. So, plus, well, you can just grab hold of it and go like that. I don't know. But either way, I think we're ready to go to restring. We have to redo everything, by the way. We have to restring the car. We have to put it back on turning plates. That's why the springs are back in it, because I have to redo everything I just did in the last video. Which is fine, because I'd rather do that than make that mistake. That would have been bad. Wow. Is all I can really say is wow, because I thought for sure it was a steering box because of how much slop was in that thing. I mean, I went to the left front, which I didn't even notice any movement in, and I found some. I never expected that to begin with. I mean, that was just out of the complete blue. We've always kind of done it this way. We've always tightened them down as tight as we could, and we've never had a problem with it, but I think now maybe there always was. So, like I said, drilling and putting bigger bolts in that actually fit the bushings and the sleeves in them, and making sure they're all the same size, and making sure the side or the holes in the frame are perfectly round by drilling those out to 1/2 inch. There's zero play now. You saw the last video, if you watched it, how much play there was in the front end. I thought for sure the steering box was bad. Well, I guess we learn something new every day, don't we? So I'm going to have to cut it off for today already. I know it's still sunny out. It's only like 3:30 in the afternoon, but I got to get my kid off the bus, and I got a bunch of other stuff to do. So I'm just really, really happy with that. Like, I'm genuinely very pleased with the results here. And, you know, for a few cents worth of bolts and a little bit of time and effort and greasy hands, I mean, to fix that, wow. I mean, I'm very pleased and very happy I don't have to spend a lot of time and shipping and money to get this thing rebuilt. So on to different things, I guess. Now we got to redo everything we just did. Next day, it's beautiful outside. I got to be honest with you. It's a little bit below 70, but that's perfect for a fatter person like me. So I did in a little experiment. Let me show you what I did. Now, yesterday, I was obviously on the other side where the flat plate is. I had the springs in the car and I wiggled it and it didn't move. So I wanted to do it again with the springs out of it because that's how I figured out that these lower control arms were moving. And the lowers are not moving, but I did find another problem. All right, take a look at this U-joint right here. Now, since I fixed the lower control arm bushings and stuff, and bolts and all that, it still does wiggle a little, but check this out. It's because this U-joint is, well, a little bit sloppy. See that little bit of movement? That's the only movement I have in the entire steering setup. So this is kind of old. I'm thinking I might just redo the whole steering shaft system in this thing, or maybe I'll find a new U-joint. I think I'm gonna have to pull this off and take a look-see, but yeah, that's got a little bit of play in her. See that? I might have to replace that little guy there, but it's really not a lot. I don't know if I really want to wait for a new U-joint to come in though, because it's such a light amount of play that I don't think it would really show up if I strung the car, but I don't know. It's tough to say, you know, so I think we might just send it, or I might measure how much slop that is. And if it's too much, I might just replace it anyway, just because I really hate waiting. I just do. But we can at least put the front end back together, knowing that the only play in this thing is in that U-joint that's at the bottom of the steering shaft. And maybe we'll just put her together. Let me do a little thinking, but we can at least put the front end back together. You guys would be proud of me. I actually did something to protect my brand new radiator. I put a big piece of plywood, duct taped her in, and I just took the steering box off because trying to get this steering shaft out of this car, let's be fair, I didn't do the best job putting this steering shaft in. It's just kind of functional, but really not what I want. I was thinking about redoing the whole thing, but it's like, you know, maybe someday I'll do something better and we'll just save the money for that. But check this out. I mean, you can see there's a visible gap here that opens and closes as I move it around. That thing's got a lot of play in it. She's all done. So I think what I'm going to do is probably just, you know, because I can rotate this independently. So I think I might just get a cutting wheel in here and just cut the metal part off, and then we'll painstakingly grind all the weld off of it until it's round again. Wow, yeah, that thing is just junk. I gotta count the splines in it and figure out what size it is just to make sure I get the right one. And we'll just go order one and start fabbing this off. So she's cleaned off here, got it nice and cut down clean, and you can tell it's been a few hours since I checked in last. I just changed the oil. I'm about to put the thing back together for that. And I pulled the valve covers off. I wanted to check all the rockers, make sure nothing was loose, make sure nothing was seemingly worn out. I have the oil filter, I think it's down here somewheres. Yeah, it's at my foot. I might cut that thing open and check it out, just to be safe. But that's not going to be in for a few days. And I broke the collar. That's the stop on my steering shaft. It's just kind of real cheap aluminum. It just snapped it right off. The collar is to make sure that if you have a really hard front impact, it doesn't shoot the steering shaft into you. Because I got a primitive steering shaft, and I wanted a collapsible one, but they were a little more pricey than I could afford when I built this car. So I think I'm going to call it for the day because I got to wait on parts. Like I said, at least I got the oil changed, and I got to go inspect the rear end. We got to change the transmission. I might do that in the meantime while I wait for the stuff for the front end. I might have to put off all the geometry for the next video and just kind of run through it this time, but maybe I'll be back tomorrow. I lied. It's a few days later. I did manage to get a few things, which I'll show you, but one of them is probably going to be a lesson for me. I got this. It is a steering U-joint. It's got the splines on one end, slide on so I can weld it on the other. But let me show you why it doesn't work. Now for a street application, I'm sure this would be completely fine. I could slide it over this end, no problem, fits very well. I could easily weld it on. See, it goes on, and it fits fine, but you can see it moves a little bit. Not happy, because any of that movement, I'm sure if I tighten this down, it would probably take up a lot of that play. But you know what? I don't want to have to rely on a set screw. Here's my old one that you've seen, right? It's a really nice one. It's a Borgeson U-joint. I've got a Sweet Manufacturing U-joint on the way because this is just some Amazon U-joint that I wanted to try. The metal is really heavy gauge and it looks really nice, but again, doesn't fit very well. So I put this old Borgeson one on. Look how hard I had to actually try to get that on, and look at this. Absolutely nothing. So that's going back. I got a Sweet one on the way. This one obviously served its purpose, but again, even though I paid a pretty decent amount for this one, still sucks because you get what you pay for. I should have just bought another Borgeson one and ate the extra 40 bucks, but oh well. I also bought this, which is for my trailer. You might be asking, why did you buy a TV and a mount for your trailer? Well, there's a very easy explanation for that. You see, the two places that I typically race at, Thompson, Stafford, wherever I end up, either one, both have streaming deals. And if anybody has ever worked on race cars, they know that it's very difficult for you to keep tabs on what's going on the racetrack or what's happening if every racer is a race fan in some way, shape, or form. So they have these streaming contracts or deals where they stream their own races, and I don't have to go walk out to the track and see what's going on. Or at Stafford, I could go literally to the bathroom and watch races, or the concession stands or whatever's in the pits, or I could just walk up to the fence, but sometimes you're a little busy. So I have a generator. I have a phone that also can act as a Wi-Fi hotspot. So I can plug my phone in to charge. I've got extension cords I'll run through the roof or wherever I end up mounting this thing. And we'll stick that somewhere in the trailer, and we can have the races that are literally happening on property streaming from my trailer. I don't think it's a bad idea. At least now I don't have to leave the trailer or go anywhere if I'm busy. So I was trying to work on a transmission yesterday because I need to change the transmission ratio, or at least the transmission ratio, because they limited us for some reason again on what rear gear ratio we can run. It used to be unlimited. You could run whatever you want. That's why I had a Ford 9-inch. Then they said again, oh, you got to go back to 456 max in the rear of the car. Fine. So I guess I can't use that one at all because that's another gear set that's more than 456. Now it's a paperweight. So I was trying to put together a transmission. I already have another one on the shelf over there that's done, but this one came without first or second gear in it. It's a 4-speed, obviously, as you can tell by the forks here. But what I did was I forgot that the reverse lever has a spring and a ball in it. Well, I bumped the reverse mechanism and the spring and ball went flying out of it. So now I have a random ball bearing that's floating around anywhere in this absolute massive mess. So that means I can't put this back together. So I'm going to try to find one, because that completely derailed me last night. I'm going to try to find one and fix this. And I was thinking about maybe taking an old one out of just like a bearing for like an old transmission bearing. Maybe I can cut it off and get the ball bearings out of here. I don't know if that'll work or not, but I figured it was worth a try, and it's kind of free because it's junk anyway without it. So I got to find a solution for this, and I got to get a new steering U-joint, but we have other stuff to do, and we'll figure out what to do next. See, this is why I hoard parts. Even if I can't use them immediately, let me put this, oh God, my elbow. Sorry, I'm old. Even if I can't use them immediately, like, look, I got bearing races for rear ends, I got shims, I got carriers, I got this input shaft that's probably got a cracked tooth somewhere. Oh my God, it's actually clean. Anyway, but in this box of random transmission parts, see, there's like shims that are worn out. I don't even know why I still have them, because this one has a groove carved into it. I found a ball bearing because I have this cover here, which I really should just throw out. This is an old 4-speed cover, and it's cracked. Oh, there goes some parts out of it. It looks like it's broken. It says somewhere, I can't remember where, but I wrote broken on it. And inside, I took all the parts out and I stuck it in there. But guess what? Now it's going back together. So if I happen across a ball bearing in this absolute pile of crap someday, I'll know where it goes. But at least I can put it back together now. Well, guys, it's been a few days, and unfortunately, sometimes life happens. And you'll notice I'm not in my garage. I'm at the other one. And, well, I haven't been able to work on the car, and it kind of derailed the video, and it's probably going to end the video because, well, like I said, things happen. My mom broke down and called AAA. And after 3 hours of waiting on AAA, they never showed. So guess who walked to the nearest auto parts store and stuck a pair of vice grips on her poor brake line to get the thing an hour and a half back home. So I also said, you know what, instead of spending hundreds of dollars and, you know, days of your life away from not having your car, why don't I just come fix it? So that's pretty much how I'm going to end the video, is showing you that, yeah, racing's fun and all that stuff, but personal responsibility also matters. And I'm going to get this thing fixed so that my mom doesn't have to spend a few $100 to have a reputable garage take care of it. And it's just brake lines. It's, you know, we live up in the Northeast, salt happens and rust happens, and that's what happened to these brake lines over time. And I got a whole big kit here, and time to get to work. Oh, it stayed on. Good. That's good enough to get her down the road to a professional so that she can get the brake lines completely fixed in that thing, because I saw some stuff I didn't like. And like I said, sometimes life just kind of happens. You got to do what you got to do to get through. It ain't all fun and games like this channel suggests. There is a lot of responsibility to life and taking care of things as well. And that's what we had to do in order to finish this thing up. So I'm still waiting on parts for the race car. I had a few things just not quite go right as I showed you, and they're on the way, and they'll make it for the next video. But unfortunately, I've got to shut this one off for now and get it out to you all so that I can stay in the algorithm and stay relevant. And I know it's not exactly the groundbreaking and amazing content that I really want it to be because, well, to be fair, it's kind of a low point, and I don't have the money that a lot of these people do, and I don't have the subscriber base either, but I do appreciate every single one of you that have, and if you haven't, please consider doing so. By the way, anybody who's a longtime watcher of the channel knows that I was involved in that sponsor contest, and well, to be fair, I didn't even place in that contest, and that's not your fault. I appreciate every single one of you, everything that you do for me, subscribing, telling people, sharing, doing everything you do, and let's be fair, the business choice that they made was the right one. They go with the young people and the young crowd and supporting younger racers and female racers and people in that area to try to get more interest in the sport, and that's great because that's what we need in the sport. And helping a struggling middle-aged guy racing a street stock is really not a great business decision. So, you know, you got to do what you got to do. So at least I was able to get you guys some discounts, and that makes me feel good about doing it because then it was a way for me to actually help and give back to you guys. So I appreciate everything that we could do for you. And again, tell your friends if you think this is something that they'd be interested in. Race cars, mechanics, engineering, fabrication, all amateur, obviously all amateur. But thank you all again for watching. I promise there's a lot better stuff coming in the future, trust me, but it's just got to get here, and it ain't here yet. You just got to keep hanging on, just kind of like I am. And I'm gonna go chase this squirrel that's trying to jump down from my parents' stone wall, and I'll catch you next time.